So welcome everybody. This is Paul Hoyt, CEO of Ascending Harvest, here with my best buddy, business partner, resident genius, Shane McKenna. And we're going to bring you a little information today on our Ascending Harvest project and share some really exciting information about alternatives to field farming, which we are one of those alternative with Shane's invention of intelligent grow media and all of the wonderful product line opportunities that brings to us that we discussed in yesterday's podcast or Zoomcast. As you can see, I can talk for a long time, but Shane, say hello to the folks.
Hello, everybody. And this is not my typical hairstyle. I just want to bring that up. I'm actually got this really incredible, out of the blue, random experience of starring in a small film that is going to be submitted to Sundance Film Festival, and we're filming that, and as soon as we get done with this live broadcast, I'm going to be going over there and over to the studio and doing some filming.
You know, and I have to say that I am very jealous. You know, one of the things that people who know me kind of know is that I'm kind of a ham. You know, when the spotlight goes on, I just want to run to the spotlight with a microphone in my hand, and as I say, that I'm happy to tap dance with sparklers in my teeth if somebody will just give me the opportunity. So I'm jealous of that. I've had a little time in front of the camera before, you know, stage, Broadway, operas, musicals, all that sort of stuff. So I am deeply jealous of his opportunity to be on stage. I oftentimes have clients who are doing movies, and I say, as part of my fee, you have to give me a chance to audition for one of the parts of that. But Shane wasn't in control of that, else I'd have twisted in his arm and made him do that. But I think he's going to do great. I think he looks the part, right? I don't know. Can you share what the part is that you're doing today?
Yeah, so I am actually the lead character, and the character is a retired surfer, and I can say this story is probably about a man who's lost his way.
Yeah,
and it has a poignant ending. It has a poignant ending and a twist at the end. And anyway, it's going to be a fun little film.
I have to say that your makeup is just excellent. It really is.
All I did was put some coconut oil in my hair.
Cool. Well,
tricks of the trade.
Well, back to the subject of today's Zoomcast. We are fired up, pumped up. Our crowdfunding campaign begins on Wednesday, September the 19th. That's 12 days away from now. We're beginning to get our name out more and more. We sent out a few thousand emails a couple of days ago. Today, I downloaded 4,000 names from my LinkedIn account that I am eager to reach out and connect to and let people know about the upcoming crowdfunding campaign. And then on the day of the crowdfunding campaign, to make sure everybody knows that hey, we are live. And if you're listening to this video, that means you're interested in the project. So, you know, tune in on the day and contribute $1 or $2 or $40, whatever you choose. But most important to us is that you share it with your network, because your network is not our network. Even though Shane and I have known each other for years and years, I was quite surprised to find out the other day that our networks only overlapped like 5 or 7%. That, you know, he knows a few thousand people and I know a few thousand people, but we only know a few dozen people in common. So it's real important for you to share news about Ascending Harvest with your network to give people a chance to help other people, you know, escape the cycle of poor nutrition and poverty with our advanced technology growing systems. So that's coming up in 12 days, and we're very, very excited about that.
So I'm going to put Paul on the spot here. He doesn't know this question's coming, but it's going to illustrate what a fantastic organizer and how in tune Paul is with every aspect of accounting and organizing. Paul? Is it
Yeah.
5 or is it 7% or is it a specific number in between those?
It was a little over 5%. We had 70 people in common out of your 1,461 contacts.
There it is, folks. Isn't that a beautiful thing? I mean, I think it's a mental illness to be that organized, but you know, we need that inside organizations. When you have me as the creative side, you need something to counterbalance that with organization.
Yeah, and likewise, you know, when you're an organized dude like me, it really is helpful to have, you know, a little bit of playfulness and creativity and brainstorming and that kind of creative genius that Shane brings to the team. So it's an honor and blessing. I think we make a pretty good team.
I do too.
Today, you know, it gets to be, once again, which I'm happy to sponsor here, it gets to be a little bit of the Shane Show today. Today we're going to talk about what I would say alternatives to field farming. You know, for years and years and years, the only way people had to grow crops was in a field or a garden. But with advanced technology, we've seen a lot of things come on that we're going to talk about. Aquaponics, aeroponics, hydroponics, greenhouses, and indoor farms are the 5 kind of things that I want to talk about today, so you can be a little more grounded in the technology that we are using to help feed the world, which is human-powered hydroponics. But of those 5 terms there, Shane, pick one and tell us what it is so we can understand it a little bit better.
Well, let's talk about probably the most foundational of those technologies, which is hydroponics. And hydroponics is farming without soil. And it's farming inside of a container. So some kind of a grow bin. And the plants are not growing in soil. They're growing in some kind of a grow media. It could be gravel, it could be sand, it could be clay pellets, ceramic pellets, expanded shell. It could be coconut husks. It could be peat moss. The realm of hydroponics is very broad, and there's a lot of different styles of hydroponics, but they all have one thing in common. They're not using soil. And I apologize for my camera wiggling around a little bit here. I am not in my normal location, and so I don't have my camera stand, and so here we go. Anyway, hydroponics is growing without soil, and in order to grow without soil, you have to have some replacement for it, which is the grow media for the support of the roots, and sometimes that is just a plastic mechanical support, and those roots just descend down into water that's been oxygenated, well, we'll talk about a different technology later. But those roots are exposed to water and nutrient in various different mechanisms. They could be in a trough. They could be in a tank. They could be in some kind of aggregate grow media that forms the support, but they all have those, what's in common is they're not in soil, and they have a water nutrient mixture, and hydroponics typically outperforms soil farming in terms of how quickly plants can grow. So farmers, particularly if they're growing like organic greens, they love to use hydroponics because they can get to their product so much faster than if they try and grow that same product in soil.
You know, I went to an indoor agricultural conference a year ago, and in that conference, that's the first time I'd even heard the term grow media. I'd always thought before then that hydroponics just meant something like lily pads floating on a pond, where the roots are just suspended in water. And then I came to understand a little bit more about the function of soil, which we talked about on a Zoomcast last week, about soil is there to deliver water, minerals, and nutrients and oxygen to the roots of the plant and provide an anchoring system for the roots of the plant so that the plant can grow tall. Without some sort of something for the roots to grab hold of, the plants would just fall over and they'd never be able to reach their maturity. So So we talked a lot about that previously. We don't need to jump back into that much detail here. But that's what hydroponics is. It is, is growing without soil and, water being the primary way that the plants receive minerals, nutrients, and oxygen.
Right. And some of the things about hydroponics that, our system has a broad distinction is that typical hydroponics or every other hydroponic system has to have some kind of continuous pumping of that water and nutrient. And even if it's in a float tank, that they have to pump that float tank so it's always circulating, because you can't, in a hydroponic system, you have to get that nutrient constantly passing past those roots. If you just put it in a stagnant situation, there is one hydroponic system that is completely stagnant, and those plants don't do excellent. They do okay, but every other hydroponic system, you have to have this flow, and that requires a lot of energy and pumping.
Yeah, which makes the innovation of human-powered hydroponics even that more spectacular to me. But we're going to leave that for a side. How about aeroponics or aquaponics? How are they different from hydroponics?
So aeroponics is you are combining the water and nutrient solution, but you spray it through an atomizing nozzle so that it becomes a mist, and you heat that water and nutrient so that that mist, it comes out so fine that it kind of becomes a fog. And then there's fans in the system that blow that around. So you have high pressure pumps to atomize that, to push it through a nozzle that it can be atomized. And then you have the addition of fans in the root zone, fans in the root zone that basically whirl that around in the reason it's called aeroponics is the roots are literally suspended in the air. And there's some simpler aeroponic systems where it's just like a sprinkler system that's spraying those roots. And those hydroponic systems, while they grow the foliage quite efficiently, there's a lot of energy wasted in the plants because the roots have to grow so large to grab that nutrient as it's passing by. They have to grow really large root systems, and so you'll see those systems, when you look at the roots on the plants in those systems, they'll have massive root systems because those roots have to grow very large to become the net that can capture that mist of water and nutrients.
Yeah, it would seem like there would be some additional cost in infrastructure necessary to support the stems of the plants too, without having any anchoring system in grow media or soil. I mean, how would you grow a plant that would normally be 2 or 3 feet tall? You'd have to tie it up and have to have frames and some sort of a structure, right?
Yeah, they don't typically grow large plants in aeroponics. They grow microgreens and smaller greens in aeroponics. It starts to become really inefficient the larger the plants become. And plus it's just an extremely complicated, energy heavy, water heavy. You can imagine all the evaporation that happens from creating that mist all the time.
Yep.
So it uses a lot of water. And also it's very maintenance heavy. You know, any little bit of debris, a tiny piece of root breaks off, you've got to filter that out. And so you've got to have the energy to get past the filters and the energy to pump the water to get it to a fine mist. And it's not a very efficient system, but it grows microgreens and small plants very, very rapidly, which is why it's popular with high-tech indoor farming.
Very interesting. So limited application, and very complex, but very effective for some types of plants. Well, then tell me about aquaponics. What's aquaponics?
Aquaponics is all of the technologies that we've talked about, but you combine that by adding fish into the system. So some fish or shrimp or some kind of water creature that they you feed the fish, and the fish produce fish manure, and that fish manure becomes the fertilizer for your plant system. So it's almost a closed loop system, with the exception that you're adding fish food.
Huh, very interesting. And those are typically in two separate tanks, right? You have the fish in one tank and the plants in another tank, and the water is pumped back and forth between the two. Just
and that's exactly right. And there's a lot of components in there to deal with the biology and the bacteria that is in those systems. The plants are extremely robust. Plants have adapted to be able to grow in a wide range of habitat. Fish are not. Fish are extremely sensitive to bacteria loads and pathogens, and so aquaponics is a very delicate balance, but when it's done well, it's an extremely efficient system of farming, because you're getting both the fish, you're getting protein, and you're getting the produce, and the only input is, for the most part, is water and fish food.
Cool. So, again, another example of a very complex system, but with the right plants, the right fish food, the right kind of fish, the right system, you can have a very effective system for growing food. Do you also grow fish at the same time? Do you get to harvest both the fish and the plants?
Yeah, of course. That's the benefit of it. You're getting your proteins and your produce in the same space, and it's almost closed loop. And I'd like to talk a little bit about closed loop, because that might be a term that people are not familiar with.
Yeah.
So the greatest example of a closed loop farm is a forest or a wild meadow. Those don't require any inputs but the sunshine and the rain. They sustain themselves by the continued regeneration and recycling of what's there. And so, and a different plant may grow up in the location that a plant died off and used to be, and there's this ever-changing ebb and flow that happens on very slow timescales that are slower than what we see in our lifetimes, but there's an ebb and flow and a balance and a synergy that happens. And closed loop is what is most highly desired in farming, because it requires the least amount of input, at least among farmers like myself who are interested in very natural organics. So even a much higher standard of purity and natural system than the organic label. So I'm talking the nth level of organics, and people who are into permaculture and natural farming, as I am, where we aspire to create a closed loop system that has as few inputs and leverages nature as much as possible to produce the output from that farm. And those systems are called closed loop, because everything that's needed on that farm is produced within the farm itself.
Very cool. Very cool. So how about greenhouses? I read a little bit on greenhouses once that seem to, they've been around for hundreds of years. Somebody figured out that, hey, if we just put these plants inside a little bit of a shelter, especially once they develop translucent material like glass or even plastic, that they had the opportunity to extend the growing cycles of plants, I believe. Tell us about greenhouses and how they interact with hydroponics, aquaponics, and aeroponics.
Yeah, I'm going to actually I'm actually going to share a little bit about an article that I read a while ago, and I can't remember if this is a small island. I want to say it's off of the coast of Italy, but it could be, it could be somewhere else in the Mediterranean area. But there's a small island there, and they discovered on this island over many thousands of years that they could grow oranges if on this island is so racked with wind because of where it's positioned, that the only way that they could grow oranges if they basically created a very special rock wall around the oranges, which helped it conserve energy from the wind, from the chill of the wind, and also helped it gather moisture from that wind. So what a greenhouse is it's an artificial environment that could be as simple as a ring of rocks in a particular way around a tree, to a glass house, essentially.
I know in the Netherlands that there have been greenhouses for lots and lots of years growing tulips and other flowers. In fact, they seems to be like the greenhouse capital of Europe. So it's not a complete environment isolation. They still have essentially the same air that is outside the greenhouse, although it may be warmer inside because you're securing it from a little bit of the cold weather and the rain and that, and you still get the sunlight typically coming through a translucent roof of some kind. But there is some isolation and some protection from the natural environments, right?
Yeah, a greenhouse allows you to extend the growing season and to also create an artificially warm environment. If you wanted to expend the energy, you could make it an artificially cold environment, but it would take massive amount of energy, and so it's not utilized for that very often. But that greenhouse creates an artificial warm environment so that not only can you extend the growing season, but you can grow plants that would not typically grow in your region. So you see greenhouses, the further you get away from the equator, the more value that a greenhouse has, because it will allow you to grow things that just simply won't grow in your weather zone.
Cool. And the last one here, which is very recent, is indoor farming. So tell us about the difference between indoor farming and greenhouses, and why you would want to use one over the other.
Indoor farming is a complete solid envelope, a building, so a warehouse without windows or skylights. Without any lights in it, it would be pitch dark. And so indoor farming is one of the fastest growing sectors of farming, because in indoor farming you can control the environment. So crops that have a high value, where you want to control every degree of that environment, including the amount of light that those plants get, indoor farming is the way to go. It's been pioneered primarily by the cannabis market, because that's such a high value crop that getting a few extra pounds is worth the money that goes into the extra infrastructure cost of building an indoor farm. The primary infrastructure add-on to an indoor farm is the artificial lighting. There's a tremendous amount of expense that goes into LED and halogen and fluorescent lighting, depending on what kind of crop you're growing and what kind of results you want to achieve in that crop. There's lots of different lights to choose from, and companies like Philips are developing research facilities where they're developing light recipes for specific types of plants. And so while this is relatively new, it's advancing very rapidly where we're getting specialized lights. And the lights are even specialized to, is the plant in the foliage growth stage? Is the plant in the flower stage? Is the plant in the fruit stage? And there's different lighting recipes for each of those stages. And so now they're even coming out with lights that are adjustable and can be adjusted for each of those stages in the plant so that you maximize, or I should say you minimize the time frame to get to harvest.
Yeah.
You maximize the growth efficiency and minimize the time to harvest.
So you can control if a plant's on a 12-hour cycle, 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark, or maybe you can really accelerate it by going 8 hours of light, 8 hours of dark, 8 hours of light, and compress the day from 24 hours to 16 hours and really accelerate the growth of the plant depending on which stage of growth it's in.
Right. Indoor farming allows us to basically fool the plant into thinking that its day cycle is different. And we can actually create multiple days in a single day for the plant, and the plant will go through all of its growth and rest and photosynthesis cycles in that shortened day. And so there's some particular plants that we might create 5 days in a single day for that plant, and that allows us to get to very rapid growth.
Wow.
And I won't go into the science behind that, but it allows us to get to very, very rapid growth and get to harvest much sooner. So you can actually cut the growth time on some of the things that you're growing by about a third.
Wow.
So where it might take you 3 months to get to harvest in the field, you can get to harvest in a month with the same exact size and amount of production.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of great information. Yeah, I assume that if those of you who are watching this recording or watching us live, your sponge is probably full now with all kinds of information about hydroponics, aquaponics, aeroponics, greenhouses, and indoor farms. As we mentioned yesterday in our Zoomcast, we anticipate taking intelligent grow media and creating products, in all of these different areas to be able to take advantage of the particular science behind growing systems in each one of those types of controlled environments. I have this vision, I have this dream that we're going to discover some plant that's growing in Indonesia or in an Amazon rainforest that is extremely nutrient dense, that grows very, very quickly, and we'll be able to, in an indoor farm or maybe even in a greenhouse, duplicate the growing conditions that it sees in its natural environments, and we'll be able to feed the world in ways that we've never been able to do it before, taking advantage of the medicinal qualities and the nourishment qualities of these very obscure plants that we're going to discover somewhere in nature and be able to harvest that and be able to really expand the use of that through some of these growing techniques. I see that coming. I know that's one of the things that you and I are going to enjoy doing over the years, Shane. And
yeah, I'm so jazzed about it because you're absolutely right. We can create a system, and we can control that system with the technology that we have now. And now with the addition of intelligent grow media, there's things that we can do, and I won't delve really deeply into the science, but we now have an opportunity to actually isolate what's turning on and off the epigenetic triggers of the plant through the nutrient the plant receives. And that kind of research was extremely difficult to do, even in the lab, prior to the advent of intelligent grow media. So I'm really excited when we start getting this material into the hands of researchers and they start leveraging it in their projects. I predict we are going to see a whole new realm of nutrients and medicines come out of the plant world from what we're going to discover out of the research that intelligent grow media is going to make possible.
Wow. That's another little soundbite I've got to remember to find and record and pull out, because that's just amazing. It really gets my juices a-flowing there. So I appreciate that greatly. And you, by the way, who are listening to this recording can help us. So you can help us get this train rolling, get us out of the station with our crowdfunding campaign that starts on September the 19th, where we anticipate raising initial funds to take this company to the next level. Our first venture is Ascending Harvest, the social enterprise, the humanitarian project to feed the world by putting these growing systems in the hands of families in developing countries and in refugee camps where they have previously not been able at all to grow their own food. We're going to empower them, enable them, feed them with these growing systems with your support. And speaking of that, we're going to put a growing system in the hands of one of you right now, because at the end of one of our Zoomcasts every day, we pick a number between 1 and 10,000, and I take a look at the list of people who have gone to our website at ascendingharvest.com and signed up for our list, making them eligible for one of these prize drawings. So, Shane, can you give me a number between 1 and 10,000?
I sure can. 6,407. I don't know if you can see that. 6,407.
6,407. And the person with the number closest to 6,407 is Russ Westergaard. Russ Westergaard, I don't know if we've met or not. The name sounds kind of familiar. But Russ, you're a winner of today's drawing for the human-powered hydroponic system. We'll deliver one to you in the first quarter of 2019 when we get to market, or you can at that point in time you'll have one donated to a family in need in your name. Congratulations. We'd love to give you a human-powered hydroponic system as well. So when you can, as soon as you can, like right now, you'll go to ascendingharvest.com and sign up for our list so we can, so you can be eligible for one of these prize drawings. And stay tuned, because in 12 days, on September the 19th, we're launching our crowdfunding campaign, and we are very excited about the opportunity we have to take this company to the next level with your support. So with that,
thank you so much.
Shane, great job today talking about hydroponics, aquaponics, aeroponics. And just so you'll know, by the way, we decided we were going to talk about that with about 5 minutes to go before the broadcast today. So Shane, you know, everything that Shane said and so much more, mountains more of information is there inside that head, you know, behind this incredible makeup that he's wearing today in preparation for his movie role. I'm excited to see him in the movie. And we're excited to see you on future recordings and Zoomcasts as well. That's it for me. This is Paul Hoyt saying goodbye. Say goodbye, Shane, and take us out.
Goodbye, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in, and I'm not going to put movie star on my resume. Not yet, anyway.
All right. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.